Less than 4 months until the New York City mayoral primary, and new poll numbers show State Representative Zohran Mamdani is one to watch, coming in a solid second place behind a hypothetical Andrew Cuomo run. The Democratic Socialist shaping up to be a real contender, and he goes on the record. And Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine wants to become the next New York City controller. Though building strong support in his home borough, he still faces a battle with Councilman Justin Brannan, also vying for the open position. How he plans to win his first citywide office. Congestion pricing at the center of yet another political showdown.
I think it's more of a New York issue, not a federal issue.
That New Yorker summing up the argument at hand. Does the Trump administration have the power to stop congestion pricing? The latest on the bitter battle with a new deadline thrown into the mix when Picks on Politics starts right now.
This is Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
And welcome to Picks on Politics, everybody. I am Dan Manarino, and while many of us are counting down to spring, we felt it this week, right? In the political world, the warmer temps mean primary season, quickly approaching. And can you believe it is just less than 4 months now before voters actually head to the polls? With that in mind, new polling from the Honan Strategy Group shows some interesting results. Andrew Cuomo, far and away leading the pack, 38% there, even though as of Friday, he has not officially entered the race. Sources telling me, however, that a decision to do so is imminent. But the second place candidate, that is the one to watch this week. State Representative Zohran Mamdani with 12%. And that's ahead of Mayor Adams, who only came in with 10%. Brad Lander, who rounds out the top four with 7%. And with these new numbers, State Representative Zohran Mamdani is going on the record. And great to have you here on Picks on Politics. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Let's talk about this, right? I know it's early, and poll numbers are poll numbers. They're going to change every so often, right? But this week must have felt good for you to really see yourself in second place ahead of some of the other contenders. How did you see that, and how does it shape what you're doing moving forward?
I think it reflects what we've been seeing in conversations with New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, which is that people are hungry for a different kind of politics, one that puts working people first. And we've seen that when we raised $3.6 million in the last filing. We've seen it when we've raised money for more people than every other campaign combined. And we've seen it when we've knocked on 60,000 doors. And this poll is just one glimpse at that momentum of the campaign.
Obviously, you're challenging Mayor Adams, among others, right? And you've called on him to resign. A lot to be said about what's happening with him, with the charges, moving forward with an election. He just launched a campaign website, right? Whether or not the charges are dismissed, does that change your perception at all that maybe he should resign?
No, I think it's been clear that this is a mayor who has opted for cowardice and collaboration when New Yorkers are demanding courage in the face of Donald Trump's billionaire-backed assault on working people across our city. And this is a mayor who had to be pressured into suing the federal government to get $80 million back of our own funding after Elon Musk took that out of a city bank account.
Yeah, he says that didn't happen. But.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that this mayor's relationship to truth and law is one that is not as tight as it should be. And ultimately, we know that whether it's Eric Adams or it's Andrew Cuomo, who is effectively running for Eric Adams' second term, same policies, same corruption, same crew, that New Yorkers deserve a new chapter.
So how do you feel about the governor's actions now to take away some of the power from City Hall and the mayor, right? You would vote on this as an assembly member. It is supposed to be voted on by the assembly, the city council, and it could very much affect you if you become mayor. Do you support them?
I think that they are misdiagnoses of the issue, in that the issue here is Eric Adams being the mayor. There should always be more accountability. We should always ensure that there is oversight. But to think that passing these laws will address the central fact, which is that Eric Adams is unwilling to stand up against Donald Trump because of a fear of having those charges brought back to him, that's why I and so many others called for his removal.
So how would you vote on it?
If those pieces of legislation were put forward, I would vote in support. But I would also know that doing so wouldn't actually bring us as close as we need to get to accountability for this mayor.
Understood. Earlier this week, New York Congressman Richie Torres, he endorsed Andrew Cuomo for mayor. And again, as of this taping, he hasn't officially entered, but sources say that is imminent. He also warned voters about you. I'm sure you saw this, saying that you are unfit for office because you have close ties to the Democratic Socialists of America, which faced backlash for rallies held after the Hamas attack on October 7th. So I know you saw what he had to say about you. What's your reaction to it?
I thought it was quite interesting to see a Congress member who had previously called for Andrew Cuomo to resign because of the number of allegations that were put forward regarding sexual harassment, and now that same congressman coming forward to say this is the man to lead us into the future. And I'm proud that our campaign was one that he signaled as one to be worthy of watching, because as we've seen, this race is becoming a contest between a disgraced former governor and our campaign for a more affordable New York City.
I guess looking at the shape of the political landscape, right? And during the past election, Democrats had some issues getting their message across the finish line, right? And we saw this shift from Democrats to Republicans. Do you think that being this self-proclaimed Democratic socialist is the way to go to lure in voters, or do you see that as maybe a problem for you?
You know, I think the most important kind of politics is an honest one, because I think that the thing New Yorkers hate more than a politician they disagree with is one they can't trust. And ultimately, what I've told New Yorkers is what leads me to call myself that, a democratic socialist, is the same thing that leads Bernie to call himself the same, which is a fight for working people against income inequality. And ultimately, our campaign is about a more affordable New York City. We've said we're going to make it happen by freezing the rent, by making buses fast and free, by delivering universal childcare. And we've seen that resonating with more New Yorkers than just the ones who call themselves democratic socialists or progressives, because there is a majority of New Yorkers who feel left behind by the economic policies of this administration, as well as of politics of today.
Yeah, I mean, and while we're on this topic, I wanted to ask you about news of the day. That could very well much be an issue as well if you were to become mayor. And that's what's going on college campuses, specifically at Barnard College, right? A small group of pro-Palestinian protesters occupying this building. It turned violent with a staff member being injured. Mayor Adams spoke out about it, saying that any protest that calls for an intifada revolution is not okay. What do you think about what's happening at Barnard right now in particular, and how would you handle it as mayor?
I think that there's no room for violence, and I also think that it's important that this mayor, the mayor of this city, stands up for the First Amendment right to protest. And what we've seen with our current mayor is that he has been willing to smear students, no matter what it is that they are calling for, as being outside agitators, as effectively being terrorists. And this is a mayor who made the decision to send the NYPD onto a college campus in Columbia. And that was a decision that led to students being hospitalized. It was a decision that led to an officer discharging their weapon in the course of that mission.
So at Barnard, though, with these students who were occupying the building and there was that staff member that was injured, do they have a right to occupy that building?
I think they don't have a right to injure anyone. There's no room for violence. And I think fundamentally this is also an issue of these college campuses. And what we've seen with this mayor is an attempt to insert himself into every single issue. Because while for a long time he stated that it was Columbia that begged him to send the NYPD on campus, he then went to a town hall and said, in fact, it was him that begged Columbia to send the NYPD.
So how would you handle it?
How would I handle
any violence on a college campus?
If we're talking about Hamilton Hall, when the NYPD was sent onto that college campus, I would not be sending the NYPD in, because I think ultimately as Democrats, what we want is consistency. If we say that guns make an elementary school more unsafe, a middle school, a high school more unsafe, why do we believe that the presence of guns, whether it be through the NYPD or any other means, makes a college campus?
I want to move on to affordability, because I've talked about this before, and I find your idea of freezing rents a very interesting one, right? Because do you have, and I've asked this before, the ability and as a mayor to freeze rents on rent-controlled apartments?
Absolutely, and I would first specify we're talking about rent-stabilized units.
Rent-stabilized, right.
You have this ability, and you have this ability because the mayor has the exclusive authority of appointing 9 individuals to the Rent Guidelines Board. Those board members vote in line with the mayor's political priorities, as we've seen in recent history, where under de Blasio, they froze the rent 3 times. Under this mayor, who describes himself as real estate, they have raised the rent, the likes which we haven't seen since another Republican was in City Hall.
So you would just make sure that you appointed people that would go along with your policy?
Fundamentally, I would be appointing people who would go along with reality. And what I mean by that is the Rent Guidelines Board did a study last year that found that landlords of rent-stabilized units saw their incomes rise by more than twice the amount of their expenses. So that shows that they're doing fine. Tenants are in trouble.
Yeah, and a big issue playing into this election is the immigration issue, right? And working with the Trump administration, something you would have to do if you were mayor. So how do you see yourself working with the Trump administration on exactly what their plans are for the migrants and immigrants in this city?
When it comes to a plan for mass deportation, when it comes for a plan to rip New Yorkers out of their homes, that is one that I would oppose vigorously with every bone in my body. And that is an opposition that we've seen missing from City Hall. Now, if Donald Trump said that he actually wanted to deliver on his plan for cheaper groceries, which he ran his election on, then I would put forward our proposal to do that through a network of municipally owned grocery stores that would guarantee cheaper prices, 1 in each borough for bread, for milk, and eggs. But if Donald Trump wants to pursue policies that get at the heart of what it means to be a New Yorker, we will fight them.
All very interesting. This is just one of many appearances, I'm sure, between now and primary day. It's good to see you. Okay?
Thank you so much.
And from one race to another, everybody. Coming up next, we are talking to one of the candidates for city controller, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, running for a citywide office as well, going one-on-one with him right after the break.